Modern Horizons. Modern players' biggest fears. Up until 2019, Modern had a relatively consistent meta, and a few decks rising up to the top before eventually having cards banned, like Splinter Twin or Birthing Pod. Modern Horizons was first released in June 2019, and with it completely turning the most popular Eternal format on its head by allowing a continual and expected injection of new cards designed to skip Standard and go straight into Modern, essentially turning Modern into a rotating format, as majority of the decks that existed before Modern Horizons completely fell out of favor after Modern Horizons 1 was released. Why was that? Well, Modern Horizons 1 provided super powerful cards that completely broke the Modern format. Cards like Urza, Lord High Artificer, Hogak, Arisen Necropolis, Yawgmoth, Thran Physician, Force Negation, Crashing Footfalls, and many others. The first card to cause problem in Modern created a summer of pain for everyone in a time period that we now refer to as Hogak Summer. 1 month after the release of the set, we see the first ban take effect in Modern, thanks to Hogak the Arisen Necropolis and the graveyard shenanigans that it caused. At the time, players were utilizing Bridge from Below and self-milling effects to overwhelm their opponents. Cards like Stitcher Supplier, Insolent Neonate, Faithless Looting were all set-up cards to throw your Bloodghast, Gravecallers, Hogak the Arisen Necropolis, and Bridge from Below into your graveyard. As you start bringing back your zombie army, you could aggro your opponent down using Vengevine, or continue the self-mill plan with Altar of Dementia. The deck quickly took over the competitive scene, dominating GP Dallas with 2 decks making it the top 8, and SCG team event in Pittsburgh had 4 of the top 8 bringing Hogak. It became so much of a problem, players were starting to main deck Leyline of the Void. Wizard steps in on what they assume would be a quick fix, with Bridge from Below getting banned. Players prove that wasn't the scary part of the deck, with 11 of the top 25 players from the Mythic Championship in Barcelona all piloting a Hogak Dredge deck, putting it at almost 50% of the top decks for the event. Within the next month, Hogak and Faithless Looting are removed from Modern. As Hogak Summer comes to an end, players begin to cool off with the newly injected tools to make a powerful snow deck in Modern. By combining Urza, Lord High Artificer, and Arkham's Astrolabe, players are able to produce a Simic or even Sultai control deck that ran 2 powerful planeswalkers, Karn the Great Creator and Oko Thief of Crowns. The deck would ramp out Urza or Oko, protect them with counterspells like Cryptic Command or Metallic Rebuke, or even use Engineered Explosive to destroy pesky permanents. Any artifact that they needed to get back, they could use Emery, Lurker in the Lock. Astrolabe's ability to draw a card when it enters the battlefield before becoming a mana rock with Urza, or a 3/3 Elk from Oko, began to cause problems. The SCG Player Championship saw first and second place both piloting the Urza Oko list. Magfest Columbus also saw 2 Urza lists in the top 4, even winning the whole event. And Grand Prix Austin saw a similar turnout, with 5 of the top 8 decks were again Urza Oko. This lasted until January 2020, when Wizards stepped in and attempted to deal with the pieces that they thought were causing the most trouble in Modern: Oko Thief of Crowns, Mox Opal, and Microsynth Lattice. Lattice, of course, would be combined with Karn the Great Creator to lock your opponents out of the game. With Oko gone, the Urza deck slowly starts to fall off without the extra power that Oko and Mox Opal provided. New decks began to rise up and take its place at the top. A 4 or 5 color snow control deck began to emerge, which no longer had the downside to our mana base, since Arkham's Astrolabe became the perfect mana fixer. The snow control list dominates the Modern meta until summer of 2020. 1 year after Modern Horizons 1 is released, Arkham's Astrolabe is banned. Modern Horizons 1 was the first and most ambitious set, with broken cards getting injected into the scene. Modern Horizons 2 followed a similar trend in June of 2021, when it released some extremely powerful cards, some so strong they were banned in Legacy, but remained free in Modern. Cards like Ragavan, Urza Saga, Esper Sentinel, and the most powerful Evoke cycle to ever be printed, with Solitude, Subtlety, Grief, Fury, and Endurance. These are just some examples of format warping cards to be introduced into Modern. Many players began brewing and crafting new decks with these tools, as the decks that were strong and popular during Modern Horizons 1 started to fall out of favor as players started brewing up with these cards, like Esper Sentinel, which helped push Hammer Time to the top of the meta, or Murktide Reagent, which helped to take the place of the Arclight Phoenix deck that disappeared after Faithless Looting was banned. These decks really fought over the top meta spots until 2023, when Cascade and Rakdos Scam dominated the meta until they were both hit with bans. Check out my 2 previous ban list videos to learn more about that time period. Now let's get to the part that scares players the most about Modern Horizons sets. We've come to terms with Modern being a rotated format. If you haven't yet, you're an old school Modern player like me, and I would highly recommend giving it a chance, especially now that Modern Horizons 3 is being released June 2024. The scary part is 18 cards have been banned in Modern since the release of Modern Horizons 1. Only 3 of those 18 cards have been from a Modern Horizons set: Hogak, Astrolabe, and Fury. Part of the problem is the way that Modern Horizons cards interact with previously printed cards and decks. If you look back through the Modern format, excluding the pre-ban list when Modern was first created in 2011, 16 cards have been banned between 2011 and 2019. In that 8-year span, that's very little amount of cards. But in this 5-year span since Modern Horizons 1, we've seen 18 cards banned. Now, many of these cards in those first 8 years could see play now and be perfectly fine. I, for one, would love to see Splinter Twin back. So why do you think so many cards have been banned since Modern Horizons was released? Also, what cards would you like to see unbanned? Let's look towards the future. Spoiler season is complete, and we know of some powerful cards getting into Modern. Cards like the Shifting Woodland, Amped Raptor, or even hate-out cards like Harbinger of the Seas, Winter Moon, and Vexing Bauble. Which brings up another question: how many current decks survive the next rotation period? Will your current deck struggle in the upcoming meta shift, forcing you to abandon ship to a new deck? Or will your deck gain some upgrades and become more powerful? Let me know what decks you're piloting right now and what decks you're maybe most worried about going into this next rotation period. That's going to do it for this episode. I hope you guys enjoyed our little discussion related to the Modern Horizons sets that have been coming out. We are, of course, going to continue doing some histories related to the ban list, related to the Modern format, about every month or so, as well as twice a week gameplay footage for you guys to be able to enjoy related to Modern. So if you like learning about Modern, you like content like this, please consider following, subscribing, all that kind of good stuff. You know how to show your support for the price of for free. But we appreciate you guys sticking around and watching the video. That's going to do it for us here today. Thanks so much for tuning and watching, and I'll see you all next game.